Million-dollar coins are real in American history, but most collectors are blinded by myths and hype. Only at Rare Coin Collecting will you discover the truth, the real history, the real demand, and the true value of rare treasures.
Imagine this, you're holding a quarter from 1920, just 25 cents. Nothing more than a piece of pocket change. But what if I told you that this very coin, if it's the right one, could be worth six figures? That a single standing Liberty quarter, minted more than a century ago, could change your life forever? This is the story of the 1920s standing Liberty quarter. Now let's set the stage. The year was 1920. America was fresh out of World War I, roaring into a new decade that would later be known as the Roaring Twenties. Jazz was taking over the clubs. Model T cars were rolling down the streets, and silver coins were the backbone of everyday commerce. The San Francisco Mint was busy that year, producing the standing Liberty quarter, a coin already famous for its bold design. Lady Liberty stands tall at the center, draped in flowing robes, carrying a shield of defense and an olive branch of peace. It's one of the most beautiful designs ever struck on U.S. coinage. But here's the twist, the 1920s quarter is not just any quarter. Its production numbers were tiny compared to other coins of the time. Just over 6.3 million were minted in San Francisco, a fraction compared to Philadelphia issues. And with heavy circulation, most of these coins were used, abused, and eventually worn down to nothing. That's where scarcity comes in. Today, finding one in pristine condition is nearly impossible. Every year that passes, the surviving population shrinks. More coins vanish into private collections, leaving fewer and fewer for the open market. And as supply shrinks, demand grows stronger. Collectors and investors know this. That's why every time a high-grade, standing Liberty quarter hits the auction block, the room goes electric. Imagine the bidding war, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, and still climbing. By the time the gavel falls, six figures have changed hands. For a single silver quarter, once worth only 25 cents. Yes, six figures. Why? Because this coin has everything: scarcity, history, silver content, and one of the most iconic designs in American coinage. That combination makes it irresistible to collectors and investors alike. And here's the part that keeps people searching. Most examples you'll find are heavily worn, graded good or very good. These might bring in a few hundred or maybe $1,000 depending on detail. But the leap in value when you reach higher grades is staggering. An AU, almost uncirculated example, could pull in tens of thousands. But an uncirculated mint state coin, that's where the life-changing money appears. In MS-65 or higher, we're talking six-figure sales. Imagine holding that in your hand, a coin that once passed through dusty shops and grocery counters in the 1920s, a coin that people once tossed into candy machines or paid for a ride on a streetcar. Now that same coin is fought over by millionaires at elite auctions. And the truth is, examples are still out there. Some may be sitting in old coin jars, or buried deep in forgotten collections passed down through families. Some may be tucked away in rolls of silver quarters, waiting for sharp-eyed treasure hunters to uncover. That's why you can't ignore a 1920s standing Liberty quarter. Every single one has value, no matter the condition. But the better the grade, the more life-changing the price. The story of this coin also reminds us why America loves the standing Liberty design. It wasn't just a quarter, it was a symbol of freedom, defense, and peace during a turbulent time. Collectors aren't just buying silver. They're buying a piece of history, a story frozen in time, and a design that still inspires a century later. And remember this: the more time passes, the scarcer this coin becomes. Scarcity feeds demand, and demand feeds value. Every year, fewer examples remain in circulation or available for sale. And that's why collectors and investors are paying staggering prices. So here's the truth. If you ever come across a 1920s standing Liberty quarter, check it carefully. Even a lower-grade coin is valuable. But if you somehow stumble on one that's been preserved in mint state, you're not just holding a quarter. You're holding a six-figure treasure that could change your life forever. So keep searching. Keep looking. Because the treasure of a lifetime might just be hiding in your pocket change, in your family's old collection, or in the next coin roll you open. The 1920s Standing Liberty quarter, once worth just 25 cents, today worth a fortune. And maybe, just maybe, your fortune is still out there waiting to be found. Find your treasure. Picture this: a simple penny from 1934, brown copper, worn by time, something most people would glance at and toss aside. But what if I told you that one of these tiny cents could be worth six figures today? That a coin once worth just 1 cent could change your entire life? This is the incredible story of the 1934 doubled die penny from Philadelphia. Now let's rewind to 1934. The Great Depression had America in its grip. Bread lines stretched around city blocks. Families struggled to get by, and every single penny mattered. And that's where this coin comes in. Because hidden in that year's production was a mistake so rare, so dramatic, that collectors today are willing to pay staggering sums to own one. That mistake is the doubled die obverse. On the 1934 penny, the motto "In God We Trust" was struck twice, ever, so slightly off, creating a bold, doubled appearance that you can see with the naked eye. This isn't just minor doubling. It's strong, it's dramatic, and it's one of the clearest doubled dies in the entire Lincoln Cent series. And here's where it gets even more exciting. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 219 million pennies that year, but only a fraction carried this doubled die. That's why they're so scarce today. Out of millions, only a handful survive in collectible condition. Every year, that number grows smaller as more disappear into permanent collections. Scarcity drives value, and when it comes to the 1934 doubled die, the demand is off the charts. Collectors know how iconic this era is. They know that every example could be the key to completing a Lincoln Cent set. And that's why auctions explode with excitement when one hits the block. Think about this. A well-worn example might still bring thousands of dollars. But when you step into higher grades, when the coin is red, sharp and uncirculated, that's when the magic happens. We're talking tens of thousands, even six figures for top-quality coins. Imagine a penny once dropped on a Depression-era sidewalk, now selling for $100,000 or more in today's market. And here's the truth. Coins like this are still out there. Maybe tucked away in an old jar of wheat pennies, maybe sitting forgotten in a relative's drawer. People have discovered treasures like this in bankrolls, in estate sales, even in dusty cigar boxes passed down through generations. Collectors and investors aren't just buying a penny. They're buying history. They're buying a story, the story of America in 1934, a nation fighting through the Depression, a minting error that slipped through, and the sheer chance of survival. That's why this coin is in demand. That's why its design and error combination make it so irresistible. Every year the supply of these coins shrinks. Every year the prices rise higher. And every time, the headlines grow bigger. Another 1934, double die sold at auction, another six-figure hammer price. So here's my question for you. Have you checked your pennies? Because if you come across a 1934 doubled die obverse, you're not just holding copper. You're holding a piece of history, a piece of art, and possibly a life-changing fortune. Remember, scratches and damage can destroy value, but a pristine example, that's the difference between pocket change and a six-figure payday. So keep looking, keep searching, because your dream coin could be out there waiting. The 1934 doubled die penny, a cent worth of fortune. And maybe, just maybe, the treasure of a lifetime is still waiting to be found in your very own hands. Find your treasure. Imagine holding a silver quarter from nearly a century ago, a piece of American history heavy in your hand, struck in 90% silver, passed from generation to generation. Now imagine that same quarter, flawed, incomplete, missing its details, being worth six figures today. This is the mysterious story of the 1927 Standing Liberty quarter, a coin that looks ordinary but hides a secret collectors will pay a fortune for. Let's go back to 1927. The Roaring Twenties were in full swing. Jazz music filled the air. Automobiles were changing the landscape, and America was standing tall after the Great War. The U.S. Mint was striking silver quarters with a bold, patriotic design, Lady Liberty standing at the gates, shield in one hand, olive branch in the other, a symbol of both strength and peace. But something unusual happened at the San Francisco Mint that year. Instead of crisp, sharp details, many of these quarters came out weakly struck. Liberty's head, gown, and shield often looked mushy, almost ghost-like. Instead of fine artistry, there was fading softness and missing detail. To the untrained eye, it looked like a worn coin. But the truth was far stranger. It wasn't wear at all. It was born that way. Collectors quickly noticed. The 1927S became infamous for its weak strike, and suddenly this so-called flaw became a prize. Because not every coin told the same story. Some were struck sharper than others, and those fully detailed coins became legendary. Here's where supply and demand take over. Over 396,000 quarters were minted in San Francisco that year, a relatively low number compared to other coins. But among that limited mintage, finding a sharply struck example is like chasing a ghost. Nearly every 1927S quarter you see looks dull, flat, incomplete. The sharp ones, they are nearly impossible to find. And when scarcity meets demand, prices explode. Think about this. A common weak strike example in well-circulated condition might bring hundreds, but a sharply struck, well-preserved coin, that's when you're talking about life-changing money. Some of the finest known 1927S standing Liberty quarters have crossed the auction block for 6 figures. Yes, 6 figures for a quarter that once bought a loaf of bread during the Roaring '20s. Why? Because collectors and investors know how few exist. Every year the supply shrinks. Every year demand grows. And every auction proves it again. The stronger the strike, the higher the price. The 1927S is a study in scarcity, and scarcity drives value. Now here's where it gets exciting for you. These coins are still out there. They hide in collections, in old silver hoards, in the forgotten coin jars of families who don't know what they're holding. Someone out there may have a weakly struck 1927S quarter and never realize it's worth far more than face value. And someone else may stumble on a sharper strike, the kind that turns heads in the auction world. Collectors aren't just buying silver. They're buying a story, a design that symbolizes America's strength. A year when minting mistakes created scarcity. A coin where every detail, every feather on Liberty's helmet, every line in the shield means the difference between pocket change and a fortune. So remember, scratches, cleaning, and damage can slash the value, but the right example in pristine condition with full details, that's when the magic happens. That's when you cross into the 6-figure world. Think about it. One coin, one quarter, born in 1927 with a flaw that became a legend. A coin collector's dream of. A coin investor's chase. A coin that could still be hiding in plain sight. The 1927S standing Liberty quarter. A weak strike that became a powerhouse of value. And maybe, just maybe, the treasure of a lifetime is waiting for you to find it. Find your treasure. Imagine holding a quarter in your hand. Just 25 cents, nothing special. But what if I told you, one quarter from 1937, struck at the Denver Mint, could change your life forever? A coin that collectors would pay 6 figures for. A single mistake on the die turned this Washington quarter into a fortune. This is the 1937 D Washington quarter double die obverse. Let's rewind to the 1930s. America was recovering from the Great Depression. The Washington quarter had just been introduced in 1932, designed by John Flanagan to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1937, the design was still new, still shining with patriotic pride. Struck in 90% silver, these coins jingled in pockets across the country, used to buy bread, pay for gas, or slip into jukeboxes. But in Denver, something unusual happened. During the preparation of one obverse die, a mistake occurred. The die was impressed twice, slightly misaligned. The result? Doubling across the obverse details. Look closely, and you'll see it. A ghost-like doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," on Liberty, and even on Washington's profile. To the average person in 1937, it was just another quarter. No one noticed. These coins went into circulation like any other. But to collectors, this doubling turned an ordinary piece of silver into one of the rarest and most coveted Washington quarters in history. Here's where supply and demand come into play. The Denver Mint struck more than 7 million quarters in 1937, but only a handful carried this doubled die error. Over the years, most were lost to circulation, worn smooth or melted for their silver. Today, the surviving population is painfully small. And when scarcity collides with collector demand, that's when the value skyrockets. At major auctions, these quarters have stunned the hobby. High-grade examples, shimmering in mint state, untouched for decades, have crossed the auction block for 6-figure prices. Yes, 6 figures. for a single 25-cent coin. Think about that. A coin worth just a quarter in 1937, now worth more than most people's yearly salary, all because of a tiny mistake at the Denver Mint. And the demand only grows. Washington quarters are one of the most widely collected series in American numismatics. Every collector wants to complete the set, from 1932 all the way through today, but to own a 1937 D double die obverse? That's a dream few will ever achieve. A trophy coin, a status symbol. Every year these coins become harder to find. More disappear into private collections, tucked away in bank vaults never to be seen again. The available supply shrinks, and with it, the value climbs higher. Scarcity fuels demand. Demand fuels price. It's a cycle that only benefits those lucky enough to find one. But here's the part that sparks the imagination. Examples are still out there, hiding in old coin collections, passed down through families, buried in dusty boxes. Someone's grandfather may have saved one without ever realizing it. Someone sorting through a roll of old quarters could stumble on a fortune without knowing what they've found. And that's why collectors obsess over details. Look at the obverse under magnification. Study the motto, the word liberty, and Washington's face. If you see clear doubling, your heart will skip a beat, because you just might be holding a six-figure treasure in your hand. But remember, condition is everything. A circulated example may bring thousands, but an uncirculated gem with sharp detail and blazing luster? That's where legends are made. That's where the six-figure paydays live. And that's why professional grading is key, because a coin like this must be authenticated to unlock its true value. The 1937 D double die obverse Washington quarter isn't just a coin, it's a story. A story of a nation, a mistake at the mint, and the relentless hunt for hidden treasures. So the next time you see an old silver quarter, take a closer look, because a simple 25-cent piece could be the discovery of your lifetime. The 1937 D Washington quarter double die obverse. A mistake, a miracle, a fortune waiting to be found. Find your treasure,